AOC really thought this was her big moment, but it didn't quite go as planned. Roll the clip.
Discussion about gun violence in Chicago without talking about Indiana. Because the violence and the mothers that we have to comfort are losing children due to the guns and the carnage and the lawlessness unleashed by those states.
During a House hearing, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez launched into a familiar argument advocating for stricter gun control. However, Congressman Clay Higgins quickly countered her point with a sharp, one-line response.
I ask you all, what happened to that country, man? A country where homes were built in cities with no locks.
That's why we're breaking it all down today. No bias, no agendas, just straight up common sense. If you like thinking for yourself, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. And let's jump right in.
Let's talk facts here. There was a lot of discussion about New York City. There is no discussion about gun violence in New York City without discussing the iron pipeline that is Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, Pennsylvania, and honorary mention to Ohio, where 70% of likely illegal trafficked guns found in New York City.
AOC's point is straightforward. The iron pipeline concept describes how firearms legally purchased in states with more lenient gun laws, such as Florida or Georgia, are trafficked illegally into cities like New York. She frames this as an issue of firearm supply and interstate regulation, placing the blame squarely on red states. This argument focuses on penalizing the supplier while overlooking the criminal intent of the user. She applies a similar line of reasoning when addressing the violence in Chicago and the role of neighboring Indiana in the movement of these deadly weapons.
No discussion about gun violence in Chicago without talking about Indiana. Because the violence and the mothers that we have to comfort are losing children due to the guns and the carnage and the lawlessness unleashed by those states. I move on. Every week in recent memory, we have had at least one mass shooting. This is not normal. Not only is it not normal, it is internationally embarrassing and delegitimizing to the United States.
So yeah, it's a bit ironic coming from someone whose party put Biden in the White House and ran Kamala as VP, and now she's suddenly worried about how other countries see us. Not too long ago, the former president looked completely lost at international events. Then there's Chicago, home to some of the strictest gun laws in the country. And it's true, nearly half the guns used in crimes there come from out of state. But that actually proves the opposite of what AOC is arguing. It shows that people determined to commit crimes will always find a way. No matter how many regulations are on the books, you don't even have to look far. Canada and several countries in Europe have tough gun laws too. Yet the problem still exists, or criminals just turn to other weapons. But AOC didn't stop there. Nope, she doubled down and tried to identify what she called the real issue, saying this.
Talk about why. Let's talk about one thing more important to lobbyists and the gun industry than children, than houses of faith, than human beings. Let's talk about profit. In 2020, again, more than 45,000 Americans by gunfire, reflecting an almost threefold increase from 2015. Are those statistics correct?
That's accurate.
So in your view, are you seeing a correlation between gun profits and gun deaths in the United States?
Yes.
AOC draws a very specific connection here. She claims there's a direct link between the financial success of the arms industry and the number of deaths nationwide. At this point, her focus shifts completely from the weapons themselves to the money driving the political debate. She pivots to paint a picture of powerful corporate lobbying and massive spending aimed at blocking any safety legislation. After making this broad financial accusation, she tries to steer the conversation toward what she calls the real root causes. It's a move that conveniently diverts attention from her own party's policy failures.
Context, the NRA spent about $250 million in 2020 alone. That's more than twice the entire salary of Congress combined. In 1 year, lobbying against gun safety laws. There's also this discussion about anything but a gun, but that these are about violent people. But yet we aren't doing anything about addressing the actual root causes of misogyny, where 2/3 of mass are connected to domestic violence, or the emergence of white supremacy radicalization, mass incarceration, and poverty, and the connections between that and mass shootings in our communities. I yield my time. Thank you, Madam.
First off, dragging identity politics into the gun debate is the last thing we need. It just clouds the real issue. Second, someone should remind AOC that correlation doesn't equal causation. And third, throwing around numbers without context doesn't prove anything. In 2023, nearly 47,000 people died from gun-related injuries. But that same year, over 43,000 died in car accidents, and nearly 47,000 from simple falls. So, should we ban cars or stop people from walking upstairs? Of course not. The point is simple: tossing stats around without real discussion or common sense gets us nowhere. Thankfully, Clay Higgins was there to cut through the noise and bring some clarity. Let's hear what he had to say.
Time to World War II. America's population, 140 million. 15 million American men came home from World War II. There was weapons everywhere. We'll talk about mental challenge. My father was one of those men who was a Navy pilot in World War II. He came back from the war and built his family. I'm the seventh of his 8 children. We had guns everywhere. There was virtually no regulation. Any child in the 50s could buy a weapon from any seller if daddy sent them with the money. We didn't have mass shootings. It wasn't until 1968 in America that serial numbers were even required on weapons sold in this country. You order weapons through the Sears catalog by the mail.
That's the uncomfortable conversation no one really wants to have. And honestly, it's easy to see why. First, the breakdown of family structures plays a big role. Decades ago, 2-parent households were the norm. Today, that's changed drastically. Another factor is how these incidents are even defined. Nowadays, a mass shooting can mean almost any event where someone fires at victims, regardless of fatalities. But the federal government once defined it much more narrowly: at least 4 people killed. You can thank the media for that shift. And then there's the pursuit of fame. Sociologists have consistently shown that the desire for notoriety motivates many of these attacks. It's a well-documented trend. Clay Higgins drove this point home with a personal story from his own experience, and he made some powerful observations along the way.
Houses did not have, that were built 100 years ago in cities in America. You know what they did not have, Commissioner? Locks. Now I ask you all, what happened to that country, man? A country where homes were built in cities with no locks. A country where guns were everywhere and virtually not regulated at all. Where millions of Americans, 14 million Americans came back. It's 11% of the population at the time after World War II. And here we sit today where an entire once proud Democratic Party is presenting unbelievably unconstitutional laws to press upon our nation, and we have a police commissioner that says he would go home to home and confiscate legally owned.
At the end of the day, it really comes down to this: guns are inanimate objects. Without intent, they can't cause harm. Sure, smarter regulations could help reduce risk, and that's a conversation worth having. But it all has to stay within the boundaries of the Second Amendment. Step outside of that, and we're talking about government overreach and a direct violation of the rights guaranteed by the Constitution. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and, as always, keep thinking for yourself.